Breaking news are happening now.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Reality Flash. My name is Mike Bloom, and I'm here to bring you the flashiest breaking news in the wild world of reality TV. Before we get into today's pressing topic, listen, I would never be one to fish for likes, so I will also say briefly to go on a tangent. Shout out to one of the subjects of a previous installment of this very podcast, Derek Lavasser. Go to the Traders RHAP exit interview with Robin Puya. It's very good and also has a little bit of a shout out and good humor about everything that went down there a few weeks ago. Very kindly appreciated, Derek. But I am fishing for subs and tips. Of course, we are still but a wee baby podcast in the eyes of the listeners. I mean, talking with a guy today that's been in these podcast streets for over a decade. By comparison, this thing is but a zygote. So be sure to go to therealityflash.com to subscribe to our video version, our audio versions, etc. While you're there, ratings and reviews are so greatly appreciated to pop in the eyes of reality TV fans all around the world. And of course, if you have a piece of news that you want me to comment on in a future episode of The Reality Flash, no solicitations, just tips at therealityflash.com. Let's get into the topic for today because a certain group has set out, we are filled to the brim with reality TV all-star shows today. The Traders has us spoiled. We've had shows come and go like House of Villains and The GOAT, but the one that arguably began it all back in 1990-something was The Challenge. And here we are, after just finishing a milestone season on MTV, setting out to film its 41st. And while we don't know the entire cast, we have a good amount of names to speculate on and talk about. And of course, this would not be a challenge podcast without at least one half of our incredibly intrepid duo covering this show over on We Know the Challenge. And of course, someone who has been in the trenches covering this show and all of its headbangers, banging his own head on the table sometimes when it comes to choices the show has been making for the better part of a decade. So excited to welcome to the Reality Flash, Brian Cohen.
Hello, Mike Bloom. Very excited to be here. There is no break in the challenge world. It is the typical challenge way to go, to have a season airing and a new season go out to filming. So very excited to talk about the upcoming season 41, the new era, I guess it would be, for the challenge.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to sort of compare it to Survivor in that they had this big milestone celebration for season 40 where they had this Battle of the Eras theme and they were bringing back people from the early days through standouts from the most recent seasons to compete against each other. To your point, that finished airing in totality just a couple weeks ago, and then they immediately the next week kept that Wednesday at 8 slot warm as they started airing All Stars 5: Rivals. First time it's made its way onto MTV. And then on top of that, they're now going out to film season 41, which will assumingly air later this year. So the challenge production is all about juggling, airing, editing, and filming a bunch of seasons at once. And so Challenge 41, for those who don't know the typical process, there is a very, stalwart team out there on the interwebs that has made a reputation for themselves by being able to spoil people who go out there on the season. Sometimes they spoil what happens on the season. We will not get into any of that. But over the past few days, it seems like many of the cast members of the Challenge Season 41 have departed to the filming location of Chile. And so, again, this is purely speculative. Nothing has been confirmed by MTV. It will not until the cast is officially announced. But this is a part of every challenge fan's kind of life cycle, Brian, right? Whoever spends at least a modicum of time online is that you look at the names that GamerVev and Pink Rose are able to post. You build your anticipation or sometimes lack thereof for certain veterans, certain newbies, and then you just endlessly speculate about what might happen within this fan fiction of reality TV that we're going to see in some time.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned Newbie, and that, typically on a challenge season, there obviously is like the crop of veterans that come back, but usually sometimes half, a third, quarter are new people to the challenge world. For a while, obviously it was like real world people coming in, and then they made the branch over to other shows. But what's interesting for the challenge now for 41, this is going to be the first time in 2 seasons, 39 and 40, both did not have any new people making their debut on the challenge. 39 was all people that have already appeared, never won. And then 40, obviously, with the big history of the season, they had people all who have already played at least once. We usually upwards of 10 times. So this is going to be the first season now in a few years where we actually are going to see some new people in terms of the challenge world. Obviously, won't be newbies to the reality TV world, but for this world, it's going to be fun to see some new names pop up here.
Yeah, and to that point, again, there's a lot of speculation as to what the theme might be. We know the challenge loves their themes, and there's sometimes overly complicated structure of producing a season. But I think a lot of people are speculating what is typically known within the challenge world, Brian, as a fresh meat season, to the point about bringing on a bunch of newbies, where essentially we've seen it through a bunch of different forms, be it fresh meat proper, be it War of the Worlds, where it's half veterans, aka people who have been on at least one season of the challenge before, and then complete newbies. And in fresh meat, it was just like people brought in off the street. In War of the Worlds, it was more so people that had made their appearances, cut their teeth on other reality shows. So the assumption right now is that the cast is going to be half veterans, half newbies, and assumingly we're going to get a veteran newbie duo going on. Though again, this is all up in the air.
Yep. I mean, it could be anything, depending. We still don't know the amount of people. It could be another 3-team thing, could be a 4-team, a 2-team, or it could be pairs. You never know with the challenge. And honestly, even whatever the format might be, it might be a new format 3 episodes in. So, we might have a certain structure, but that does not mean at all it's going to be continuing through the season. So the biggest thing for each challenge season is just who's going to be on it. And then we'll worry about the structure once we're out there.
Yeah, so let's get to it here. So we have compiled, at the time we are talking, this is the evening of February 13th, 2025. We should also mention when it comes to this preseason era of certain people on this team, adding and sometimes taking away people who are confirmed cast members, a lot is sort of in flux. There are names that are just being added last minute. Some are not added until like halfway through the season because, especially when it comes to these rookies, the team has to identify who they are and what show that they came from. To your point, it's not exactly 2 feeder shows anymore. Some people are added and then taken away after the fact. So this is a timestamp of who we are told is on the cast right now. I will again say, this is all speculative, purely. And so there might be people who we're about to get into who are not on the cast. Ultimately, there will surely be plenty of people who we're not going to talk about today who are on the cast. But right now, especially given some of the names that have been announced, we felt like this would be a prime opportunity to kind of take the temperature at the moment and see how we feel about the Challenge 41 cast as it stands.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's dive in. Let's see what we got.
All right. Well, I don't want to dive in. We know what happens with heights over water in the challenge. People often break ribs over it.
What's the safety precautions in RHAP podcasting?
None whatsoever. No OSHA laws.
So it's like the challenge.
Exactly. So let's start with the familiar faces here. Let's start with our veterans. And I think, Brian, we probably are going to have some people, some looky-loos coming in here who don't necessarily know some of these tried and true faces of the challenge. So maybe we might want to give a quick elevator pitch about each one. I should say that right now there are 8 confirmed female veterans, 8 confirmed male veterans. So again, we don't know exactly what the numbers are, but obviously due to the fact that the spoiler team knows much more about the veterans than the rookies, these are the names that are usually coming in first and more set in stone.
Yep. Makes sense.
All right. Well, let us start with somebody who, again, talk about time being a flat circle. We're actually seeing right now on our screens in a completely different season. So while one season's airing, she's going off to film another. This is Aneesa. Brian, give us the quick to-do on Aneesa.
Yeah, so Aneesa's certainly been around here for a while. This must be closing in on her 15th, 20th season. Most notably, has never won before. We saw her on season 40. We're seeing her currently on All-Stars 5. She doesn't have the best reputation in terms of her final performance, her physical performance. We're seeing right now on All-Stars that's being called into question. Supposedly, the big thing going into the season for Aneesa is she has put a lot more dedication and work in the off-season training. So this could be the best version of Aneesa physically that we've seen in quite some time. So that could be something exciting to see. But this is someone who I think there might be some groans seeing her name once again on this cast list.
Something that's also very interesting is that Aneesa is one of, I would say like a rotating group of 4 hosts, but usually hosts the official challenge podcast alongside Tori Deal, who is her friend, who is her, usually one of her closest allies, including on seasons that she's on. It's this weird thing where usually you would think that people would not make podcasts out of seasons that they are actively a part of, but MTV decides to do that with Anissa, and she is able to sort of comment on her own decisions, reacting to the edit at the same time.
And she is definitely one who also takes in what the audience says about her seemingly a lot. So I think that'll be interesting to see, especially how it plays out here. She's very well aware of the perception of her in the fans. She's not one that clocks off the online discourse. So another little notable thing for Anissa.
Well, let's go from someone who is, just recently appeared on the flagship, which is usually what challenge fans use to refer to the main show on MTV, as opposed to any spinoffs like All Stars. And let's talk about someone who it's been a minute since we've seen her on a flagship. Of course, we are watching her right now on All Stars 5, conveniently enough, partnered with Anissa. But let's talk about, Brian, Ashley Millionaire Mitchell.
Yeah, Ashley. So, as you mentioned, we haven't seen her in Challenge proper in quite some time, popping up here in All Stars. Most notably known for Ashley, she's the most, as TJ would say, the most winningest money earned woman in history. AKA, she's won the most money as a woman in the show's history. Mostly because in one of her seasons, she was partnered with this guy named Hunter. They won the season together, and at the end of that season, the winningest partner had the choice to either split the money with their partner or steal it or take it all for themselves. And this prize, in this case, was $1 million. And Ashley decided to take it all for herself. So she won $1 million for that season, leaving her partner with zero. And that is quite the biggest momentous moment for Ashley in her challenge storied history.
Yeah, I mean, she has earned the nickname Smashley. I think she kind of came in with it. She's certainly one to speak her mind. In fact, the most recent episode of All Stars ended with her arguing with Anissa. So she is someone who is absolutely like not afraid to get in someone's face if she feels that way. And I think a lot of people, she had a little bit of like an unceremonious exiting from the last flagship season that she was on. There was some stuff behind the scenes that essentially caused her to get pulled, that are circumstances that, again, are still a bit murky. So I think absence makes the heart grow fonder, and there are fans who are really excited to see Ashley back.
Yeah, there was a question as if she would ever be back, especially because we didn't see her on 40. She was obviously still one of the biggest names, especially for the women on the show. So when she didn't pop up for 40, I and a lot of other people thought, all right, they're just not going to ask Ashley back, that she's just going to be done for the show. And then you see her pop up in All Stars. It's like, oh, maybe she's not back. And now here she is in 41. So she's definitely back.
So Ashley certainly had a hiatus, but she does not hold a candle to this next person. Let's talk about Aviv. So I mentioned this fresh meat format before. Aviv was one of the fresh meat. She won in her first season and then disappeared from the challenge. Only recently got called back in season 40. And Brian, now it's 2 in a row.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It would be like, they brought back Kelly Wigglesworth for a season. It would be like if then all of a sudden she was brought back again for the next season right after that. That was the amount of time we haven't seen Aviv from her one appearance and one win on Fresh Meat. Popped up on 40. Was part of like a larger alliance, but didn't really make much of a name for herself. So a lot of people, including myself, thought, okay, that was fun. We saw Aviv pop up again. Nice to see her, see how she's doing pretty well in season 40. But she's back again, season 41. And I think it'll be exciting to see her back now with some new connections after coming off of season 40, doing pretty well, showcasing herself, being a part of like the Bananas larger alliance, as as a name we might mention coming up here. So it'll be interesting to see how she now is able to do reacclimating with those people and, coming up with some new people.
Yeah, I mean, Aviv, I'll be honest, did not give me much in season 40. I think, unfortunately, the storylines she was involved in were a little controversial. And then outside of that, she really wasn't popping personality-wise. So I'm hoping we get to see more of her in this season to prove like she can exist outside of a specific couple of alliances. To your point, with one particular person on this season, it might just continue that trend. But it's very intriguing. I mean, Aviv kind of took the path that a lot of people took in previous years of like going on All Stars and kind of like reinvigorating their challenge careers. Aviv was just doing that, but on MTV proper.
Yep.
All right. Next up, talk about somebody else who took a lengthy hiatus and then came back. Here's the tea on Cara Maria. Considered, I think, one of the female faces of the show. There's been argument about her being on the Mount Rushmore with someone who set a record for like making a number of finals, considered one of the best women to ever play the game. Again, took a little bit of a break from it, but then returned with this 1-2 punch of All Stars 4 and 40 and now 41, Brian.
Yeah, so I think after 40, a lot of people were fully expecting Cara to be back in the regular swing of things with the cast, coming back season after season. And then over the last week or two, there's been some controversy with our girl Cara in the streets. If you want, you can go down the Reddit threads if you want to see exactly how.
People, we won't be getting to that for various reasons. People can do their research about.
But there was some question, like, all right, is this gonna call into question Cara's space on the show? Are they gonna, because the challenge, as you saw with like Ashley and other people, when people get in the hot water, do they pull the plug on her? And at least as of right now, the plug has not been pulled. Cara's back. It's going to be very interesting to see how the cast reacts to her coming off of this. Obviously, they're going to know everything she said and done as they're going into filming. It'll be very fresh in their minds.
Yep.
So that is going to be a very interesting dynamic coming into this season. But, I mean, as you said, Cara's probably the female face of the show. And it's amazing that she was gone for so long and now is back. And this is a very good chance she could pull out another win. She's as good as it gets. So it's going to be a very interesting ride for Cara, especially right off the gate.
Well, not to mention, again, you would think coming out of 40, like the whole storyline was that, oh, she finally left a season with friends. She had built bridges with some of her like worst enemies that held grudges for years off the show. And then she does objectively stupid, harmful shit like that online that has one particular friend who is going to be on the season unfollowing her and saying, he would not necessarily want to get involved with someone with those values. So again, to that point, obviously we're not going to see any of it, but like I will be intrigued to see how much stuff like that might be incorporated into the gameplay, because there are a couple people on this season who like actively called out a couple things that some of these cast members were doing prior to going out.
Yeah, and this all, like I said, all happened in the last week. And if they're going out to film now, I assume they start filming within the next week or two. It's not going to be forgotten come day one when they're in the house. So.
All right, well, let's get to somebody, Brian, that I was excited to see pop up because I never thought it would happen. She made a 1-episode appearance on the flagship, disappeared, came back for USA 2, and was one of like the MVPs of that season in terms of strategy, entertainment, competition. And then I thought, okay, there's no chance that Michaela Bradshaw crosses back to the flagship. But lo and behold, the stars have aligned, and she is back again.
Yeah, this is one of the names I was most excited to see pop up. As you mentioned, she was a star on the USA version, the CBS version for the challenge. She was unbelievable there. We only got to see a tiny glimpse of her on her one season of Proper. So to see her back here now with some familiar faces that she'll have in her corner on the CBS Survivor side, which will be nice to see. But she's going to come in as a pretty big threat. She nearly won the season she was on. She went very, very far. Could have easily had won it. So she's going to be a major threat. There's going to be obviously a lot of bigger names in the mix, but having Michaela here is just incredible. Very, very excited.
And not to mention, you might say on the one hand, like, oh, she only lasted 1 episode in, the ocean of the MTV version, but she pretty much got taken out for the same reason she got taken out in her first Survivor season, which was like she made kind of a hit list and somebody found that hit list and essentially outed it. And because the veterans were targeting the rookies, she became an easy person to throw in first. So she used that obviously as a bit of a fuel for her in her time on USA 2. So I'm very excited to see what she is going to bring. She is also someone who is not afraid to start drama as well.
Nope, and not afraid to go after, if the vets are somehow working together in the season, she's not afraid to go after some of the bigger name vets. So just because she's on the vet side doesn't mean she'll be working with the vets. She might skew more rookie. So very excited to see Michaela back here.
All right, well, let's go from someone who weathered a cyclone in Fiji to an outright hurricane. Let's talk about Naya, though maybe that hurricane settled down a little bit, Brian, because Naya is someone who went away for a long time after an incredibly controversial exit in one of her early seasons and has been a bit of the rehab tour, but is still messy AF.
Yeah, we're having Naya back. She's a much calmer version than her OG version when she burst onto the sea with the real world on the challenge. Much more, she comes into the show seemingly like a bigger physical threat, but has always had a lot of self-doubts in her performance. Hasn't really captured what seemingly would be her full potential for a season physically. She's had some eliminations here or there, but it seems like she's capable of so much more. I don't know if she's put the time in between seasons to like get herself ready to go, but she's the type of person that seems like it could be like all there for her to pull out a win, but I just don't know if that is the desire that Nia really has.
I mean, I think the good news for fans out there is there are people who are understandably maligning, like, the challenge used to be sloppy, drunken hookups and occasionally feats of strength. Now it's America's fifth sport. Nia is the one that still brings that former. And especially considering, like, how many of these people on this season are in committed relationships and treat this more as a business than anything. Hopefully, Nia will be able to. She had a freaking love triangle going on last season with Josh and Kylan, so maybe she'll be able to replicate that.
A lot of other names to pick from, I guess, from this season. So hopefully for her, some better names.
Rounding out the veteran women, there's a couple more here. Let's talk about Nany, because it's been a minute for Nany. And if we talk about relationship status, Nany comes into 41 in particular in a very different state.
Yeah, I think for challenge fans, if they saw this name pop up like 3 weeks ago, they'd be like, oh, Nany again. And she's on All-Stars right now. I think there was a lot of Nany fatigue even going into this season for All-Stars. But now, most notably, Nany was engaged to longtime challenge player, Big Brother 20 winner, Casey, planning their life together. And they just released that they had broken up a couple weeks ago. We did a famously viral Instagram live with yours truly at Jordan Kalish's Survivor Fantasy Camp when this news went down. And this is going to be the first time we're going to see Nany post Casey breakup. The breakup happened after her appearance at All-Stars. That's going on right now, so we haven't seen that. So I think for challenge fans, this could be a revitalization of our intrigue in the Nany storyline to see what the new version of her coming into the season is going to be like.
And I think Nany, much like Anissa, is one of the biggest bridesmaid in challenge history. Now, of course, both of them are competing on All-Stars 5. So for all we know, they might have actually gotten, that win that they desire so much. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's something they continue to chase as they keep racking up seasons. And so maybe Nany will find one here.
Could be. You never know. Probably not, but you never know.
All right, last veteran woman here. Let's talk about Olivia, who really became one of the more favorite famous faces of, the late 30s of challenge seasons. Maybe the reputation soured a little bit towards the end. But Brian, what are your thoughts on Olivia here?
Yeah, Olivia came off season 39 as one of the darlings of the show. Made it to a final, unfortunately lost in kind of horrible fashion with a ball flying in her face in the final. Had to be medevaced home out of it. Or I guess that was in 38. And then 39 came off a little bit more soured with her behavior with some of her friends, with Michelle, with Nerys. Well, very messy player coming off of 39. 40 seemingly revitalized her image amongst that group. I don't know if the fandom would also see it, but also on 40 began I think still continuing relationship with Theo, who is another name we might see pop up. And it'll be, this will be wifed up version of Olivia. We haven't seen that version of her coming into a season. So how that dynamic will play out with her male counterpart will be an interesting fact.
Well, you talk about male counterparts. Let's get into some of the veteran men here. And let's start with a big one. Let's talk about someone who some might argue the GOAT, even though he was not voted the GOAT at the reunion. CT, one of the most famous faces on the show after a surprisingly early exit in 40, Brian, is back for 41.
Yes, CT, most notably for winning Traders. I'm very excited to have him back.
Of course, the biggest notch in his belt is winning Traders.
So yeah, obviously coming off 40, disappointing effort, obviously for him. Looking to come back again. Maybe the talk of Jordan being the GOAT, he wants to remind people of himself as being the true GOAT of the show. But there's not much. I mean, CT is what the challenge is about. He, back in his day, obviously relationships, fights, physical. He is what the challenge is mostly about. So if you don't know CT, even if you don't watch the challenge, it's kind of amazing if you somehow avoided the lore that is CT over the last 15 years. But very excited to have him back in the mix here.
Yeah, I mean, this is someone who is considered, essential to the show, had one of, the biggest arcs we've seen on the series, let alone in a TV character. And the guy that used to threaten to smash people's heads and eat it to like becoming dad CT. And I think he's also looking for a little redemption as well. He went out super early on season 40 after winning back-to-back seasons in 36 and 37. So I think he's ready to get back into fighting shape, quite literally.
And I think coming into this season. Yeah, coming into the first time he's back being single. He had a very public breakup, divorce. I'm not sure there. I think divorce with his significant other. So we're back to single CT as well. So look out
I
for that.
don't know. They might be back together again.
Are they
It's
back
always
together now?
much like
Oh,
the
no. Okay,
much
I
like the
don't know.
gamer Vamp thread. You have to like refresh every couple days to see what the status
I need my
is.
relationships are in my year to give me the factoid. I thought they're okay. They're back together. Here we are.
All right, well, let's move on to someone who has become a newly reinvigorated darling, I would say, of the challenge. Derek Chavez was someone who had like made some appearances in the 20s, went away for a little bit, came back in All Stars, where he turned around finals appearances in All Stars 4 and Season 40. And Brian, it looks like he's becoming a bit of a constant in these modern seasons.
Yeah, love that for Derek. Came in, All Stars did very well. 40 had some high expectations. He blew him out of the water, making a final. Did very, very well in that final. Very likable. Will have a lot of people on his side, a lot of friends. But now coming in with maybe a little bit more of a target, and people will see him as more of a threat than they're used to seeing. But if everyone likes Derek and everyone wants to work with him, I don't know how much that will matter. But this will be very fun to see Derek as more of like the hunter or the hunted instead of the hunter going into a season.
Ashley hopefully won't steal money from him if he's a hunter. All right, well, let's talk about another Derek here. Derek Kaczynski, Derek K. And obviously, he is, remembered as one of the most tenacious people in challenge history. But Brian, I will admit, I'm not a doctor, but I was incredibly confused and concerned upon seeing Derek K on the list here.
Yeah, so Derek in season 40, I believe just completely tore his ACL, maybe his MCL.
And his MCL, yeah.
Yeah, so he had a knee injury that for an NFL player would take a full year of recovery. And that's with like the most top of the line doctors, the top of the line recovery. That takes a full year to get back into playing shape. So for Derek at an older age than most like NFL players, like 25 years old, that might do this. Back again, very surprising. I also was like, did he get a full knee replacement? I don't understand how he's back, but he's got that warrior dog mentality that even a torn ACL is not going to matter because he's somehow back again.
Yeah, this is the guy who, after tearing his ACL during a daily, just kept hopping through the challenge, insisting that he had to finish. So, like, this was a guy who, no matter what medical professional you are, I don't think he would say no to the opportunity. Now, will that translate to a good performance?
Right.
I'm not entirely sure, but it does show that Derek truly does have like the heart of, an underdog at all times, of just never give up, even if your body's telling you to quit.
And it would be the ultimate Derek move to win a season coming off a torn ACL. That would be so him. So I wouldn't put it past him.
All right, let's move on here to yet another face of the franchise, Brian. Johnny Bananas. Of course, someone who arguably out of like maybe all the challengers has kind of raised their profile the most, having appeared very briefly on The Traitors, having appeared on House of Villains. But Johnny has sort of made his way back to the challenge to start striking a bunch of appearances together, including on 41 here.
Yeah, most notably, obviously, feuding with Dan Giesling for every single day of our entire lives on Twitter.
I mean, I don't know if it's a feud, if Dan just like is very much doing the Don Draper meme of I don't think about you at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, if CT is not like what the face of the challenge is, it is obviously Johnny Bananas, coming off one of his best seasons in a while on season 40, making the final, doing decently there, finishing third. But, I mean, coming in with, we mentioned Aviv, a new alliance member there. Not much more you can say about Bananas. Like, he's going to come in with like the biggest target on his back, to be up to his Bananas things. It'll be interesting to see how he works with some of the newbies coming in.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a frat boy troll from the moment we saw him in Key West through now. This is a man who admits he doesn't necessarily mature. So, like, be warned, people, if you were not warned by all the shit that went down on social media when he was riling up CBS alumni and fans, and then it turned incredibly ugly. Like, that is the Johnny Bananas experience in a nutshell. It is the thing that has made him arguably the most famous person on the challenge, synonymous with it. And yet it's intriguing to see he has not gotten a win in some time. But I think especially if you look at this cast, especially from the veteran side, he is kind of surrounded by a lot of Bananas sympathizers that, unlike last season, might be less likely to turn on him down the line.
Yep, absolutely. He's got some new ones that he's been cooking along the way too.
Well, let's maybe talk about one of those sympathizers here. Once upon a time, Brian, Leroy, yet another bridesmaid to the challenge, lost, his umpteenth season and said, I'm retiring now. I'm not coming back. This is, I believe, the 4th season he is doing since he made that retirement announcement.
Yeah, my message again to any challenge player in the entire history: please just stop it. No one believes any retirements. No one will believe a retirement because it's been done before. Banana's retired. I believe CT is retired. Obviously, Wes is retired, who honestly might be the most believable at this point. Leroy's retired. None of these people are retired. There's no reason to do it. I'm not believing them anymore. I'm happy Leroy's back. I like Leroy. I hope he wins All Stars. I hope he wins this season. He's a likable guy. Let him win money for him and his family with Cam and the kids and put it to his 529 account and buy more investment properties. I don't know. But we don't need retirements. We don't need them.
Yeah. And so Leroy, again, is someone who's also kind of chasing that brass ring, might be finding it, where he's doing very well on All Stars 5. But somebody who, is someone who can definitely make some moves. Again, the most recent big flagship season he was on in Double Agents, like him and Cam really ran that house. And I think we'll see a lot of Cam in his narrative too. So I'll be intrigued to see. Obviously, Leroy had a very disappointing exit in 40. Hopefully he'll be able to piggyback off a pretty good performance in All-Stars 5 into 41.
Would love to see it for him. Would absolutely love it.
All right, well, we talked about a bunch of faces that, as the season 40 portraits have shown, we have seen very recently. Let's talk about someone, Brian, who we have not. Let's talk about Rogan, as Kyle would call him. A bit of a bastion of not necessarily the bygone days. I would say maybe like the pre-2020s of the challenge.
Yes, another name that I think a lot of people will be excited to see. Was very instrumental in his last season. I believe his last season was when he won World of Worlds.
He appeared in Free Agents as well.
Okay, but
sorry, Total Madness, not Free
Total
Agents.
Madness. Okay, but it was very instrumental in his short time on the series. Had some notable flings with someone we won't mention. Obviously, he won a season, but also got caught up in doing some things that were saying some things that were not appropriate, and that's kind of similar to the Ashley style that we never thought we would see again. I thought we would see him on 40. When we didn't see him on 40, I'm like, all right, maybe we'll never see Rogan again. I'm excited to see him on 41. I'm not the moral compass of the show. It's hard to judge what is not acceptable for people.
That thing broke a while ago, yeah. Brian. North is pointing all sorts of south.
So look, I think he's a very fun character. I'm sure he has a lot to prove, having not been on the show in quite some time. So he's going to come in hot. It's going to be very exciting to see.
Yeah, I think that Rogan is someone who is not afraid to get messy. And he has such an interesting journey through the challenge, where the first one he ever did, he got purged in the very first challenge. He finished in last place in his very first season. He goes on to then win his second season and make the final in his third season. But he's also not afraid to be someone who gets incredibly messy. As you mentioned, in the affirmation relationship with She Who Must Not Be Named, like he was doing all sorts of shady shit there. So I don't know who he might get involved with if he does, but he is someone that is not afraid to throw relationships around to get what he wants.
Yep. He will do whatever it takes to make his name back known again in the challenge streets. And I'm here for it.
All right, let's go to one of his fellow UK brethren. Let's talk about Theo. As you mentioned before, new partner of Olivia. What do you have to say about Theo?
Theo, most notably, unfortunately, had an incident a few years ago where he was popping a champagne bottle. The cork went right in his face, hit right into his eye, and he's unfortunately blind in one eye. And it's a horrific incident. It's horrible. And also we thought, obviously that's going to be it for Theo. Probably never see him again. But he got the call. He came back for the USA 2. And now he's kind of just back in the challenge streets, making another appearance. He was on 40, started that relationship with Olivia. I think a lot of people, at least not a lot of people, I'll speak for myself, was very excited to see him back. I think he was a very fun character on the Theo 1.0. Theo 2.0 is kind of a disappointment. A little dull. Also saying some controversial things on the old Twitter sphere. So that not very fun to see there. So it's kind of a bad combo. He seems like not the greatest dude on social media and also pretty boring on the show. So it's, not the best combo.
Well, Theo, to your point, made a huge splash in his first season, finishing in second place to this guy, Turbo. So Turbo is a Survivor Turkey winner. And if you took the temperature as to how the fan base felt about Turbo after the first season where he won versus where he is now, it is two total opposites, Brian.
Yeah. Speaking of moral compass being turned upside down, that is Turbo to a T. He is as scary of a person I think we've ever seen on the show. I think people on the show were genuinely afraid of him. They didn't know what was going to happen. He was like if Matt from Survivor Amazon like morphed onto the show of the challenge and started sharpening knives all the time. That is Turbo. If you want to like understand Turbo, I believe he released a song that will explain him very intimately. So you can go check that out, and that will explain the fear and the confusion that a lot of people have with Turbo. But he's also an incredible athlete. So him being on the show, there's a very decent chance he might just win this whole season.
And listen, this is a guy where you truly do not know what Turbo you're getting at any point in time. Like his rival for this season was someone who was one of his closest allies like 2 seasons ago, where it's just depending on where you take Turbo, what mood he's in, whether or not you're copying his walk, he might be 2 different people entirely. And so after returning to Rivals for the first time after some people thought he might not come back at all, I'll be intrigued to see what he brings back to the flagship.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's what we had to say about the veterans, but there are some new faces coming to the challenge. I'll be back in a flash to get into everything we know about the newbies for the challenge season 41. All right, Brian, this is the moment that I would imagine a lot of people have been waiting for. We got through the familiars. Now time to get through the unfamiliar. And for some people, this might be very unfamiliar. It's time to talk through the rookies. Now, at the time of recording this, we only know 3 of the male rookies. So I thought it might be easy to just kind of like bang them out quite literally 1, 2, 3 before we move on to the women, where there's honestly a lot more to talk about. Justin Hinsley. So again, the challenge has very much expanded from its old days of real world, road rules, occasionally Are You the One? Justin is from the Netflix series Cheer, and I believe he's only on like 3 episodes of it.
And it's interesting to pull from Netflix because Netflix has some of their own Netflix competition, other type shows that they pull from, and these like someone like him would go to. So it is interesting. I don't know how exactly they pull it off to get someone from a Netflix show over to here, but we got Justin.
From what I've heard, you know, he has a good social media presence and he's a fun personality. It's always the case with these newbies, even more so for those that we don't know very much of from a competitive aspect. I mean, obviously, due to Cheer, he has participated in cheerleading, which comes with a certain amount of athleticism to him. It's tough for men on the challenge because it almost always favors like the bigger, stronger builds. I don't know if Justin is necessarily that, but there are certainly challenges, especially nowadays, that might favor more of his flexibility and acrobatic aspects.
Yeah. You know, sometimes with the challenge, being an unknown is a good thing because, you know, you might surprise people, but unfortunately being an unknown could mean you're an easy target, an easy boot. So I think for someone for like Justin, being partnered with someone, if it is a vet type thing, being partnered with a vet with some connections would be pretty important for him.
All right, well, let's get into our next person. And we thought, Brian, that the days of casting new people from Are You the One were done. But lo and behold, William breaks the seal here. So William is from Are You the One? Not from the MTV version. Paramount Plus did produce one well-begotten season of Are You the One a couple of years ago. William was a part of it. From my research, it seems like he was like an interesting force in the game, or like he would be behaving some ways one day and then be completely different the next day. And then I think, you know, the pictures that the spoiler teams have been posting, he's also quite jacked as well, which is also a bit of a, you know, a reason why a lot of these newbies are cast on the show.
Love to have more Are You the One representation. As you mentioned, that was like the first show that they kind of branched to outside of like the real world, the real road rules stratosphere. So time we get some Are You the One representation, can't hurt it. But also, it's also weird. I don't think any of the vets are from Are You the One? Like I know there's a lot of them that they pull from, but I don't think we have any connection there. So that's unfortunate for William.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, if he checks the boxes of what a newbie should do, which is like be athletic and good in the challenges and or cause a lot of drama, if he's able to do both, kismet. That's great. Hopefully we can have like a newbie sticking around here.
Would love to see it for him.
All right, well, let's talk about another rare appearance from a show on the challenge, The Amazing Race. I think we've had like 1, maybe 2 people come over to the challenge. Here's another one. This is Jeremy. So Jeremy and his brother Liam were not on this past season of The Amazing Race, but the one before it, season 35. Jeremy and his brother were competing. They had this storyline where like the two of them hadn't really gotten along as siblings, and now they had just newly reconnected and were using this opportunity to race alongside each other. I will say, maybe just due to the edit and, everything that was going on with the race, him and his brother did not pop immensely. Their main storyline was like they were not particularly great at anything. I will say I had a very fun time talking with Liam and Jeremy. They really popped for me in the interview. But also, his physicality kind of speaks for itself. And I should have mentioned him and William, both former Marines as well.
Okay, so that's a plus. Interesting. Amazing Race. In the USA versions, obviously those are much more Survivor, Big Brother focused, but they did drop in a few Are You the One, Amazing Race people in each of those seasons. None of them did tremendously well. It was kind of a tough thing that there were only like one or two teams total, so we haven't really got to see what Amazing Race people could do on the show. I mean, a Marine guy seems pretty likable. Seems like he could do pretty decently. So, high hopes for Jeremy. Fun name, Jeremy.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move into probably the bigger talking points here. Let's get into some of these rookie women. And here we go, Brian. I think he's reporting for duty right now. He is a true American as we are talking about America. And I believe, Brian, this is a bit of a record here. I believe that America is the first RHAP podcaster to appear on the challenge. We, of course, have had someone like Michelle come from the challenge and podcast on RHAP. But, of course, America from Big Brother 25 hosted her America Tells All Bachelor Recap podcast, which is obviously on a bit of a Giannis, not a Jeremy, because she's going to be on the freaking challenge.
Unbelievable. Couldn't be more excited. Couldn't be happy for her. I would love to know all the tidbits Corey has been feeding her. I'm sure they've been doing some deep dives. Corey's hopefully been watching our podcast, giving her some insights about who to work with, what to do, what not to do. Very excited for her. I didn't think this would happen. I thought I didn't think America would pop on the challenge. I didn't think that would happen, but I'm saluting. I'm reporting for duty. I'm an America stan till I'm blue in the face. So I am very excited.
Save that word for a couple things down the line. Yeah, so let's talk about this because I think there has been a lot of back and forth since America was revealed about, from a competition aspect, how does she stack up? I mean, it's tough because people say she didn't win anything. Others will say, well, Big Brother 25 most notably had a lot of competitions, especially towards the end game, slated for like these bigger, larger men. And assumingly America would not be going up against them one-on-one in eliminations. And she did show, some prowess and stuff like the pressure cooker in BB Comics. I would say even more so, I think America is going to bring it in the drama department. America was not afraid to be messy, sometimes to her detriment of leaking stuff in the game. When one of her closest allies nominated her, quote unquote, secretly, she told him to his face, F off, and then walked away. So like America is somebody who absolutely speaks her mind. I imagine that's going to be something she will bring onto the challenge, which might get her in hot water early on or might make her a new fun character for the show.
Yeah, and I think even like the competition side of it, I think, coming off of 40 where the female crop is probably the best it's ever been, I think just on the outset looking in, there's a lot of the big names from that season that aren't on 41. Laurel, Jenny, Emily. There's a lot of like those big physical women that are not on this season. There's still a couple, but it's not as physically imposing of a female crop that, look, is America going to beat Cara in a hall brawl type thing or a pole vault? No, obviously not. But there's enough of the other women there that I think she could hold her own. Look, she did very well on the puzzle in the first night of that Big Brother season. Challenges, the eliminations have been skewing more towards like Survivor-y, where it's like part physical, part puzzle. So she could definitely help in like kind of like the latter aspect of that. So look, I'm not putting my chip on the table for an America win, but I think she could put up a decent fight in certain aspects of the show.
Do you think that we will see a Skype call to Corey at some point in the season?
I mean, we can only dream. I would love to be on that Skype call list. I can do a shared call with Corey if he wants to, like, do a little 3-way call. I can give some insights as well. So, I can get on that list. We'll give her some insight, but that'd be great. That'd be great.
Let's move north of the border here to talk about this next person. So this is Ayoleka, aka Leka. So she is from Canada's Ultimate Challenge Season 2. Now, from what I hear in my remedial research here, Canada's Ultimate Challenge actually is kind of like a Canadian version of the challenge in that basically it's like they compete in a bunch of outdoor obstacle courses. It does sometimes feature reality TV alumni, and from what I hear, Lekka was a star of season 2. She has a background where I believe she used to be a basketball player, and so she has a lot of athleticism to her. Apparently she made a lot of good TV as well during her time. So again, if she is able to check the right boxes and she lasts long enough, Lekka could be just what we need in a challenge newbie.
Yeah, I mean, she's got the 22 necklace on this photo right here. Must be her number. So I think if you have that, you're probably pretty good. I doubt you have a number if you're not a good athlete. So that's pretty good. Maybe her and, I mean, Michaela's got a basketball background. Maybe that's could be a connection for her. Yeah, she looks great. She looks like she's going to be a great fit. Very excited. A lot of Nike sponsorship she's got going on here. So good for her. Hopefully she can bring it to this season.
Well, if you thought we were done with Big Brother 25, put a pause on that because it is time to kitty purr boots the house down. Brian Cohen, Blue Kim is back. Someone who was obviously a big presence in Big Brother 25. One of the rare non-Jagger Matt people or Cameron or Jared to actually win a competition to the point where she was gotten rid of because she was seen as the biggest threat left. And what will be interesting is her with America. Supposedly they worked it out in the remix, but obviously Blue ended up directly contributing to the downfall of America on BB25.
Yep. Look, I'm sure the show and the producers are going to try to play up to each other their feud. They're going to want to have the confessionals of America and Blue talking crap about each other, wanting to target each other. I hope they both recognize they probably should try to work together. I hope they have put their differences aside because I think as a duo, they could be very formidable. And I think it will break the Twitter sphere to see them working together, to have the Blue stands, have to work with the America stands. I think that'll be a lot of fun to see. I'm excited to see Blue. She a very messy player coming off of Big Brother. I think she could fit in this kind of messy world of the challenge. So I think she's a great pick to come over.
And not to mention, listen, this is someone, America as well, who got into very public showmances in the house. Of course, unlike America, Blue is currently single, and we'll see if she's ready to mingle in the house.
Watch out for those couches.
Oh, God. Listen, considering the sanitary conditions of the challenge house in general, from what we've heard, like Lysol wipes are like magic, Mr. Clean magic erasers compared to what they're used to.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about, Brian, one person that made the fandom freak out upon seeing them. I would say number one was America, but this one was right close behind. D. Valladares. D, seen as one of the most dominant winners, not only in the new era of Survivor, but in Survivor in quite some time. She has officially made the jump, Brian, from Survivor over here to the challenge.
Yeah, I think you can make the case probably the top draft pick on the board for all new era Survivor players that you would want to see make the leap. And I think if she wants to, she could build a Michelle-like career on this show, coming back season after season. She obviously has the physical performance. She obviously can get involved in the romantic side of it that we saw with her in Survivor. I'm sure she can bring that here. Very good confessional giver, very sharp, won't put up crap with anyone. It's very exciting. I couldn't believe she was on the list because it felt like, oh yeah, of course we would want to see D coming from Survivor to make the leap to the challenge, but just an absolute perfect selection.
Yeah, to your point, someone who is incredibly athletic. She is a CrossFit junkie, and someone who also had a lot of physical prowess in Survivor 45, winning the most immunity challenges that season. Someone who, again, absolutely killed it in the gameplay, truly masterminding, some of the most clean-cut moves we have seen in the new era, and also being able to cultivate relationships in very different definitions of the word, right? Like, she entertained a showmance, which is incredibly difficult to do on a season like a show like Survivor. So to your point, I think Dee has a lot of things in her first season that could really lead her to becoming a mainstay on the main show, depending on who she gets partnered with. If she doesn't get targeted right away, I think that, to your point, a lot of people have been doing their own sort of wish lists or drafts as to like which Survivor people will make the CrossFit over into the challenge. And Dee was a high pick with that combination of not only physicality, but ability to create some drama.
Yep. No, it's an unbelievable pick. I can't believe the challenge did something right here by getting her over here. I'm so glad she said yes. Obviously, she was just on the podcast with Kelly and Michelle. I'm sure they maybe gave her some tips as well. It's a bummer that Michelle is not on this season to kind of have that relationship already built in. Maybe her name will pop up. Still some names to be seen. We never know, but would have loved to see them two working together.
All right. Next up here, Izzy. So Izzy is from Too Hot to Handle. And Izzy, what's very fun about her, she is from the UK. So I'll be intrigued to see how linked she is with some of these other international veterans or rookies alike. But Izzy is also a personal trainer. And so, again, I think this is part and parcel what you want to get in a challenge newbie. I didn't watch Izzy's season of Too Hot to Handle. Maybe Kirsten can fill me in, but it seemed like she was also a little, a little bit of a character too. So I'm excited to see what she's going to bring. She seems like a little bit of a wild card to me.
I just wonder if there's gonna be some PTSD from America and Blue seeing an Izzy pop up and start to freak out at what that might mean for them. But yeah, I mean, based off that description, she seems perfect. There's been some good successes from the Brits making their leap over for as much as they can. For as long as they can handle being on the show before they unfortunately can no longer handle being on the show. So I think the Brits have done well. Hopefully, Izzy can be a success story.
All right. Last but not least, Brian, we're taking it back to the island here. Let's talk about Survivor 41 contestant, the first one to be taken out at Mergatory, Sydney Siegel. And it's interesting. Like, I feel like from when Sydney was in her prime in the 7-8 episodes that she was on screen in Survivor 41, people were already pegging her for the challenge, and here we are.
Yeah, it's amazing to see her because obviously, like you mentioned, she didn't. I mean, she made it decently far, but not very far. Like I think she's more of like a niche Survivor internet favorite. I think if you pulling regular people on the street, they probably wouldn't really remember her all that much. But I think in that season, in the Survivor Twitter sphere, she was very popular, very memeable, very funny, very dry sense of humor with a lot of confidence. I think she could be a lot of fun. I'm curious how well she's maintained like Survivor connections. Like, does she have any sort of relationship with a Michaela, with a D? I think that'll be very crucial for her. But it's a very fun pick. It feels like a very off the board pick that the challenge would do, but it seems like a very fun one.
Well, because I think the challenge, again, they come in all sorts of different personality types, especially now. But I think a lot of people typify a challenge contestant to be like someone who is athletic, thinks incredibly highly of themselves, is not afraid to stir up shit. And Sydney kind of represents that. I mean, she was incredibly blunt and unapologetic, both on the island and off the island, and talking about what happened on the island. She is someone who professed like how good she is at everything, how she felt like she was the most athletic person on her tribe. So I think no matter how long she lasts, it's going to be fantastic television because the second she does not like this could be a real world championship situation where like if she's partnered with a veteran who is doing something that she does not want to do, she will be more than happy to put her foot down and let her mind be heard.
Let her be partners with bananas and let's just grab the popcorn and see how that goes.
All right. Well, we have a lot of popcorn to harvest, Brian, as who knows when this season is going to come out. But for now, we just sit on our hands and eagerly speculate. Again, for all we know, this podcast could finish and then we refresh the page and like 3 to 5 more names are added. There were, in fact, a couple of names that were added onto the list, but then got dropped about like 12 hours before we came to record this. So again, this is all up in the air, but we figured we wanted to come on while like the iron was still hot to try to discuss our immediate thoughts on what we believe will be the majority of the cast for season 41.
It's just fun seeing some rookie names up there. As we mentioned, last couple seasons, but a lot of the same names, All-Stars, a lot of the same names. So we got some fun new ones up there. Seems like a good one. I would assume look out for this season sometime in the fall, late winter, something like that. It's usually around when the season will come out.
All right. Well, Brian, in the meantime, while one challenge season is filming, to your point, you've got a lot on your hands covering this current season. What do you want to plug of what you've got going on with Allie here on RHAP?
Yeah, we just episode 3 just dropped this week. Allie and I on the challenge wrap up. You can subscribe to that challenge. robertswebsite.com/challenge feed. You can follow each of us. Last tweets, Cohen Brown _ I keep up with all that. Join our challenge wrap up Facebook group. A lot of fun discussions happening there. A fun thread about what's going on for 41. Keep up with the cast news there. Join the challenge world. It's a 365-day a year thing. It's not like Survivor. They go away for a few months. You got to miss it. There's no missing the challenge. It's always on.
And that's the thing. People also ask, like, what season should I hop in on? It's very tough because due to one of the most unique elements of the challenge, which is so many people do so many seasons that it becomes like almost soap opera-esque with all these long-running arcs. It's kind of like a moving train in that you kind of just have to start running and grab on at the right time. You could start in like a previous season, but there's so many things happening on the show, in previous seasons, on social media that you kind of just want to jump in, whether you're a new fan of this, whether one of the newbies has brought you to the challenge or not. There's no good time like the present.
Absolutely. Just jump on in. If you like it, there's boatloads of content waiting for you at the Paramount Plus to catch up on. So just jump on in.
Like the Sinister proper, a boatload of content. Brian, thank you so much for coming on and offering your insights. Looking forward to when you and Allie inevitably do cover season 41, where again, you can showcase your America Standum in full. Of course, let us know your thoughts in the comments. What is your reaction to the cast we know so far? Is there anyone you hoped would be on season 41, either from the veteran or newbie perspective? Feel free to let us know. And of course, make sure you're subscribed at therealityflash.com to make sure you don't miss a second of any reality TV news that's out there. As we're experiencing, casts are flying out everywhere. Seasons are being announced. There's a lot going on, and I have got you covered on everything that you need to know. And finally, if you see something, say something. If you have any piece of news that you want me to cover here on the Reality Flash, no spam, no solicitations, just tips. Again, just tips at therealityflash.com. That's going to do it for this episode of the Reality Flash. I'll return in your eyes and ears soon with more reality TV news you need to know as it breaks. Thank you all so much for listening. Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I'll be back in the future with the newest piece of breaking reality news for you all to chew on. Until then, you've been flashed.